All right. So I'm going to, obviously there's plenty of people that don't know any of the last year and a half. And so plenty of people maybe know a good bit, but we'll just start from the very beginning and give you all the details. So I have to say that to give you my background on this is when we first go to the doctor and we find out what's going on and we're asking God for healing, coming from the Presbyterian Church, totally believe in healing, but it's not something that you really encounter talking about on Sundays. You don't really hear that much about it, which is totally different than other churches where it's happening every week and they're having people come down to the front and you're praying for them for healing. And so I was a little clueless of like, what are we expecting? While I'm wanting for sure to trust that God is going to heal Frank, I was like, I don't have a clue what to expect. Is this a 10% chance God's going to answer our prayer? Is it a 90% chance? I have no idea. But Christy and Cindy were completely confident from the very beginning. And so I say that to say that God kept kind of pushing me out of my little box because, I feel like when this for sure started, I've described this before. I feel like I was in this little 1-inch square, and that's all I knew of God. And as each week and month went on, he shone a little bit bigger light on my square, and it got bigger, and it got bigger, and he was saying, you don't have a clue what I can do. No idea. And so I'm giving you a little more light to show you, but that light is just infinite. It stretches across the universe, and I feel like that's how little I knew of who Jesus was going into this. So we had several people that, I can't even, there's no way to go through all the different ones.
It would take too long, but a lot of people sharing what they saw the Lord sharing with them.
Yeah. And it was basically Frank being healed. And including one very close friend of mine that was in my wedding, that as he's reading through his Bible, shortly after I told him everything, he felt like God highlighting one of the healings of one of the parents' child in the Bible. Mm-hmm. And he said God spoke to him and that verse was for us. And so then, and I don't know if it's really important what time frame this was, but your friend that you called about the 43s. So do you know I'm assuming it was within the first month or two?
Spring. It was like March, April.
Okay, so very early. Mm-hmm. All right, do you want me to just tell it the way I remember it? All right, so if I mess up, you say something if it's important. So you call, I don't even know who it was.
Rita Green.
Okay. And she's telling Rita, oh, yes, ma'am.
What month was he diagnosed?
February 2020.
Right before.
Right.
Yeah, right before. So she's telling Rita the story of what's happening, what's going on, wants her to be praying.
Yes.
And she's driving in her car, right? Rita was driving. And so after you finish telling her what's going on, she says, as you're telling me this whole story, I look up and I see a 43 on a gas sign. Mm-hmm. And she said, I never look at gas signs. Mm-hmm. Just don't pay attention to it.
Yeah, the Lord highlighted it.
And the reason she said that's significant is because she was at a healing service.
Conference. She was on
Conference, okay. And the one thing I kept wanting to ask you, because I kept forgetting, was how long ago was that?
Could have been years ago, because I think that's been
Okay,
a
so
sign
a good
between
one.
her and God for a long time.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And so on the way to the conference,
Yeah.
God told her 43 is going to be significant, right?
At the conference.
Yeah, it was there, like
Yeah,
during praise
during
and
the
worship.
healing part of the conference, he had spoken the number to her 43, and she thought, what is that? She just didn't really know. By the end of the conference, Randy Clark is who she was on the ministry team with, and he's from Bethel. And he just loves to do this thing where on this side of the church, you know, how many prayers were answered, how many healings, everything, and on this side of the church, he always loves to know the numbers just because. And it's the first time ever it was the same number on both sides of the sanctuary, and it was 43 and 43 on each side. So the Lord had just spoken it to her first that it was going to be a significant number. So between her and God, it just has always been a sign for healing when God highlights that number to her. Yeah.
And so she sees this number while Cindy's telling her all this, and for complete and total healing.
Mm-hmm.
And so she shares that with us, and I'm like, okay, that helps a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm more encouraged. And I mean, for sure, I didn't really think anything after that with 43. And I'm assuming you didn't.
What do you mean?
Like, a few months go by,
Yeah,
and then all of a sudden you start seeing them.
yeah,
It was really after the July 31st.
yeah,
So, all the time.
yeah. I started looking then. You're right.
Uh-huh.
Am I including the July 31st?
Sure.
Okay. So we're at the beach.
July 31st of 2020.
2020. So, you know, a few months after we find out what's going on. And we were originally going to leave on a Friday, I guess, and the service was on Saturday.
So, yeah.
And so our family were going to leave on Friday. Cindy and Stephen's family were going to be there till at least Sunday. And so you had already said, and I would love it if y'all were there to go to this church service with me, a church that Cindy has known for a long time and loved this church and wanted to go while we were there. And so we're like, okay, yeah, we're not ready to go home. Let's just stay through the weekend. And so then it was, okay, for sure, Christy was going to go with Cindy. And so they were saying, well, Frank, do you want to go? And he kind of went back and forth. He was like, first, yeah. And then it's like, well, how long is it going to last? Because I don't know if my leg will feel like sitting there for a long time. And it was like, okay, it may last 3 or 4 hours. And so then he was like, maybe I don't want to go. And then he was like, no, okay. Yeah, I do want to go. All right. So before this, and maybe we'll just say March or April, I had a dream. And in that dream, I felt like God showing me that Frank was going to be healed in July. And I've never had that happen. That was new to me. I didn't even say anything about it for several weeks because I thought, if I'm wrong, what in the heck? And I don't have very much confidence that I know what I'm talking about here. You know, maybe I'm just imagining, I don't know. You know, I'm thinking every thing in the book of why I shouldn't say anything, but I finally did. And so they go to the service on Saturday night, and it's July 31st. And at the end, they said, you know, everybody wants prayer, come down to the front. And y'all were standing down there for a little while before anybody even finally came over. And you or Cindy will have to talk about that because I wasn't there.
Well, getting ready to go that night, when I was getting ready in the shower, it was like the Lord totally impressed upon me, Frank's going to receive his healing tonight. Like the prayer for healing is the same kind of healing I felt the same day Jesus healed my wrist. So it's like, oh, I know that feeling kind of thing. So I got really excited and told Christy when I picked him up to go to church, I was like, let's look for 43s the whole way to the service. Kind of thing. We saw like 4 different times.
Like
seeing
car tags.
car tags and different things. So we were getting really excited. So the expectation and the faith was built before the service had even started. And at the end of this, and when going into the service, I had told my friend there that wound up being my main teacher while I was in school down there, I said, tonight, my nephew's gonna get healed. He's gonna receive healing prayer. She was like, I was like, I just know it. She was like, that's awesome, getting so excited. And she told one of her friends, all she said, his name's Hunter. And she had said to Hunter, she said, there's a person here tonight that needs prayer, game on. That's all she said to him. And then that happens to be the person that came and prayed at the service with Frank. And then you say the things you remember Hunter saying when he came up.
He came up to Frank and said, do you need healing in your body? And we both, Cindy and I, look at each other, yes, he does. So he starts praying, but he's tapping his own leg while he's praying. He said, it's dying, it's melting away, it's burning away. And he ended up saying that, I don't remember if he said cancer, but I don't know if he asked him if he had cancer or if he just said the cancer's dying. So we were like, yes, yeah. This is it, yeah. But I'm also like wanting to see everything go, like would just be gone. Yeah. And that didn't necessarily happen. Yeah. But Frank said, looking back that night, he said, that was the first night that I felt like God was telling me, I'm going to heal you. Because otherwise, before that, he's just listening to us saying, Rita said she saw the 43, and to him, he's thinking,
the Bible says,
yeah, the Bible says this. He's like, but that was the first time he's like, this guy didn't know me. This guy was tapping his own leg. This guy was saying, calling out that's burning, it's melting away, it's dying. So he's like, that's the first time I felt like God was telling me, I'm going to heal you.
And prophesied over his life.
Yes, told him. There's another fella came. Oh, well, no, he did. He said, you had the gift of evangelism on your life. That fella did. And he told him that he was going to have the gift of healing. And I feel like he said something else. But then another fella came around and prayed, and he told him, he said, you're going to have a decision to make in a couple of weeks, and you can't make the wrong decision. And then a couple of weeks later, he ends up finding out that that the cancer had progressed, so you can either take this pill or take this chemo. Neither one has a chance of curing it. You just can pick which one you want to do if you want to do one. And so he picked the pill, and the other, that was basically all that the guy said, because the rest of it had to do with me, but that was not the story.
So
we believed he received his healing that night,
and that it's just going to be
walk out the healing.
Yes,
until we waited. While we waited, and there's always purpose.
There's worth in the waiting.
Worth in the waiting.
And so I think my dream combined with that,
was the end of July.
And that was the last day of July. And I said, isn't that just like God to wait till the last possible second to give you some kind of an answer? So I think that was definitely very encouraging for him, that the dream was also aligning with him getting prayed over that night. Okay, so I don't know, maybe forgetting something, but
the pill had worked for a while. Like he got scans in that. He started taking that pill in like August, I guess, and he had scans in December, and they showed things had gotten smaller. He got scans again in March, and things had gotten smaller. But then when he got the last set of scans, would have been June-ish, maybe. Yeah,
This
and
past June.
Yeah, this past June, then it showed that it was not working anymore.
And the purpose of the pill was not to cure or kill.
The even the chemo. From the very beginning, they offered chemo, and they said it had a 20% chance of giving him 5 more years. And with like heart problems,
all kinds of
secondary cancers, cancer from the chemo. It was a mess.
Cancer was not an option.
No.
So you see the commercials for drugs, and then it tells you, this may cause this, and this, and we were sitting in the doctor's office having them say that. It's like, seriously, that's your answer is, well, we can give you this, but it may cause 8 other things that are all life threatening, and so from the very beginning, he said basically, we started off juicing, and he just got to where he could not do it. It was very unexplainable.
Yeah.
It really was. It was everybody else could drink the juice and think, okay, it tastes normal, but for him, it was like just drinking toilet water. I mean, it was
Straight
that's.
apples. It was straight apple juice once.
Yeah, he got to where he couldn't even drink just straight apple juice. And
For clarification, that was when he was going to do a natural route.
Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
juicing and supplements and not poisonous things. And he hated it.
He had
And
an
he did
amazing
do radiation.
Yeah, he did radiation.
yeah,
It's
did
like
radiation
that
on his
did
leg.
And that helped.
That got rid of, that shrunk the size to be where he could wear clothes.
Yeah.
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 Hmm.
That
I said he
happened
was in
early on.
Mexico for
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and I have to say, I mean, we start off with both me and Frank being in a little bit of, okay, I don't know what to expect, I don't know what to believe, and of course he was, he went through all the motions you would assume. He felt like God had abandoned him, felt like God hated him. Why would this happen to me? And he went from that to having the faith of the Roman centurion. And the Roman centurion comes to Jesus and he says, my son is dying, will you heal him? And he said, yes, I'll come to your house. And the Roman centurion said, you don't need to do that. I'm a man under authority. I tell this person to go do this. He does it. All you got to do is say the word. And Jesus is like, whoa! I haven't seen faith like this in all of Israel. And that was Frank. At some point, that happened. And so, as things keep going, and I mean, for sure, when the doctors say the pill's not working anymore, and you could see spots getting bigger, and I'm going, hon, don't you want to juice? You can do that. And he's like, Dad, you don't have enough faith. And I was like, oh.
That was hard on me too.
I was like, I have plenty of faith, but God gets credit for it. Ever how you're healed, whether it's juicing or what, but oh, please, don't you want to do this? And he just would not. So, okay, I guess I'll say this first. So after the doctors say pill's not working, and they said, we have an experimental drug you could try. And he said, well, let's go home, pray about it, talk about it. And so a few days go by, and he has me and Christy come downstairs, and he said, I feel like God's telling me not to do anything else and just trust him. And so I'm going to back up to what you and Cindy had already gotten. But
And Mama.
yeah. So we had all caught a cold, and so he had caught it.
This is all this summer.
Yeah, this is
June.
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 And so he's just coughing nonstop, and his nose is all messed up, and he just is basically feeling miserable. And so when he told us that, I said, okay, well, buddy, let's pray for confirmation. And we'll pray that God will remove all your symptoms. You wake up tomorrow, you're not coughing, you're good. And if he does that, we will say, okay, God, you're confirming for Frank to just go forward, trusting you and nothing else. And I said, even tonight before he goes to bed, I pray that he is just peaceful, already feeling much better, and just, before he even goes to sleep. And that night, he lays down and coughing had quit. He lays on his stomach, which he had not really
He'd been sleeping
done.
sitting up because it was, yeah.
Yeah, and he hadn't done that in close to a year and a half. And he said, I feel peaceful. Mm-hmm. And he went to sleep. And he woke up the next day fine. He wasn't coughing. It's like symptoms had gone. We're like, well, okay, God is going to just do this without anything else.
And then his symptoms came back by that evening. By the time he had the phone call with the doctors to say, I'm done, I'm not going to take the pill anymore, I'm not going to do the experiment, I'm just relying, and he's told them God's going to heal me. And you need to know that. I told the doctors, I was like, I just feel like I'm supposed to tell you first. No, he did that on that phone call. He said, I think I need to tell you first that God's going to heal me. And so, I know, I really want to talk. One of the doctors, the other one I don't care. But the one of them, I want to sit down with her and be able to tell her the whole story.
Yeah.
So again, he's not got any doubt at all. And at this point, we don't either. So at some point, a little before this, and I don't remember.
Later.
Because
It
that's-
was a
that
week later
when we all
when
went to church 4th of
Yeah.
July.
Wait a minute.
He went with us
whoa,
4th
whoa.
of July. It was
That's
the
what I'm
next,
saying, that was
right.
good.
The four of us
Four of us. Yeah.
went to a church service on the 4th. And that was right before he had to say, I'm not going to take anything.
Uh-huh.
And the pastor comes down off the podium and he said, looked straight at Frank. He said, I talked about 2 things today that were not in my notes. He said, my spirit was drawn to you the whole time. He said, and I think it was because of you that that these new topics that I talked about, and it fit exactly. One of them was talking about Mary and Elizabeth, and Frank and I had just that week been talking about Mary and Elizabeth, and then the other was about the 10 lepers, and how the 9th one came back, or one came back to say, thank you for healing me, and that guy he was healed and restored, meaning guy's body parts back. So we're like, we're praying you not only get healed, you get all your muscles back, you get all your fat back, you get everything back. Was fully healed, fully restored. Here I am, alive, well, and fully restored. That's Psalm 32 and 3. So that was my prayer the whole time. And I did not tell the last week that he was so bad. I didn't tell Elise anything because I was convinced he's gonna be fully healed, and we're gonna go to her dorm and surprise her, and we're gonna show up and be like, hey. That's where we were.
100% confident.
Uh-huh.
But I was about to say what God told you guys. So that was a little
Okay.
bit before this.
Yeah, a lot
Yeah.
before, months.
Yeah.
Yeah. So months before.
Yeah.
So at some point, Christy comes to me, and
I
you
know.
you just tell them what.
Okay, my part that does months before July, I would say in the spring, maybe even before that. I wish I knew all of the little things and what they were, but I just know God started laying on my heart, hey daughter, you know what? What if I asked you to raise him up from the dead? Like, what if he dies and you have to raise him up from the dead? I was like, that's kind of weird, and I don't want to be in that position. No. And then, but just like we saw the 43s, and we would screenshot them and send them to each other, like, look how many 43s I got that day. That kind of stuff happened.
Sorry, forgot that. We started seeing the 43s
all the time.
a few months after this friend of Cindy's tells her this.
Like, I'd pick up
God
my
started
phone.
showing them to
I'd
her.
set my phone down to charge, and it'd say 43%. Or somebody would go on a drive, and we had that Life 360 on our phone. It'd say top speed 43 miles per hour. I mean, that happened and not just the time. We'd pick up our phone, and the time would be something 43 all the time. So we're like,
we're talking 10 times a day, every day for months.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
It just kept happening, and it would be God showing Cindy that, and her that, and me that, all separately.
Yeah.
Probably was way between the 3 of us. It was probably well more than 10 times a day.
Yeah.
So I start thinking God's telling me, and it's just as like I would see the 43s a lot of times, I would hear like a lyric to a song or a Bible verse or just something where he would say like resurrection was being highlighted, and I was like, no. I don't like that plan. But so then, like 6 weeks ago-ish, Cindy ends up calling me one day. She's like, listen, I just want to know, like, I'm going to ask you a question. It's going to be kind of hard for me to ask you because I don't know how you worded it, but something like, I want to know, like, where you are on this question. I'm like, I could tell she was thinking the same thing. And I was like, nope, you cannot ask me that question out
I was
loud.
like, but it ends really good.
And I know.
Nope.
She's like, is it something where like it takes a whole lot of faith? It's really bad, takes a whole lot of faith, but it's really good. I was like, yes, we're on the same page. We're talking about the same thing. I'm there. I got it. But yes, God's already said that to me. I can do it. That's, but we're not going to say it out loud.
The reason why it was so strong with me, though, months ago, the Lord had put it on at the very beginning, the Lord had put it in my heart, knowing, like, when He was saying it's going to change our family generations to come, and I thought, that's just the enemy, and put that one out. And then, a whole year more goes by, and it was like a soft punch in my gut the first time the Lord brought it to me, and I was like, oh, that's God, and I don't like this. Just like I don't want it to come to that. And then I had gone on a trip in Jacksonville, Florida, and coming back with one of my girlfriends, we were listening to testimonies from this guy in South America that's his ministry, is raising the dead. And we're listening to these testimonies, and with this one he's talking about had nothing to do, it could not have made you relate it to Frank at all. It was about a baby. And I'm driving, and it was like, ooh, like the hardest sucker right now. I went, And she was like, what's wrong? And I was like, was it you? I didn't think I had told anybody that I'd had that feeling a few months prior. I said, was it you that I said something that I really didn't like thinking about Frank, but it would be God and it would be good? She said, yep, like that. And I was like, okay, well, I just had it again. It's really strong. I feel like I need to talk to my sister. So that night is when I tried to tell her, and she's like, nope. And I could not cross that line. But the next day, the Lord would not let me shake it at all. And the Lord was like, no, it is time to prepare. You will not be surprised. You will not be caught off guard. It's time to prepare. So he's like, you're telling her. So the next day.
And like, I remember one time even going, okay, Satan, I just want you to know that if you take him, I'm taking him back. Like, this is like just I now said it so you don't have to do it. Like, that's what my faith is, so just stop.
So the next day, when I wanted to talk, before I talked to her, I called Mom, like, to be like, I got to tell my sister this. She said, I've had the same gut feeling a few months ago. So all three of us had been thinking this is what it could come to. And nobody likes it, but like, here it is. So then I was like, okay. So then I'm telling Christy about it, and we're talking like, do we have the grit for this? We've got to prepare. We cannot be taken off guard. Are we going to bring the dads in on it? And they were like, no, not yet.
Well, I said no. Cookies cannot hear those words.
That's a little out there.
Yeah.
For just yet, but we're preparing. So we called it the grid. So when we were talking about it, it's like, if we're preparing for the grid, that was kind of our code word we're talking about. So we've been preparing all this time for 6-7 weeks, like really preparing with scriptures, our faith, our heart posture, gratefulness, thankfulness, and putting together our dead raising team of intercessors.
All right, so she comes to me at some point during this to tell
somehow
me.
the conversation went well. I was like, I can tell him right now.
Yeah.
He won't fall out too much.
And so I was like, okay. So I started this journey with, can I trust you for healing? And God kept moving me out of my comfort zone to where I was like, okay, yeah, all right, no big deal. We got this. I totally trust you for that. And now you're asking me to trust you to possibly raise my child from the dead. And I'm like, what the heck? Seriously, what the heck? I mean, I'm like, I've never heard of this. Except in the Bible. I said, I would assume it probably happens in other countries because there's some crazy stuff that happened in South America or Africa or wherever. And so, but I'm like, I don't know anybody personally that's been healed. I sure don't know anybody that's had this experience. So, like, all right, let's just don't go that far.
That's exactly what it says.
Let's just try. God's going to heal him before we get close to that. And so again, God keeps pushing me out of my little area, and and I'm just in uncharted. I kept saying the whole year and a half, I'm in uncharted territory. I've never experienced any of this, and this is all new. Okay, so I don't really know how far you want me to skip. To just skip to Sunday.
Sure.
So he had been on oxygen for, I guess, about 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
3 weeks,
Uh-huh.
and mainly because he had a tear in his lung that had anyway.
Just need
It,
oxygen.
yeah, I mean, I just kept assuming that was totally the reason, and it had happened before, and the tear fixed itself, and he didn't need oxygen before. So I just kept thinking, okay, it's gonna heal, and we're gonna get off oxygen. We're not gonna need this for more than a few days, and God's gonna fix it. And so during those few weeks, he basically was just in bed, couldn't really leave the room because of being on it. And we had planned a beach trip a year ago. And so we're getting closer to that. It was to go in the motorhome. And so I kept saying, okay, God's going to fix everything. And Frank was going to go on a trip with Elise and her parents. And that was going to be on a Friday, and then we were supposed to leave on Sunday to go to the beach. And like, he's going to fix it. And I mean, we believed that up until Friday morning.
Surprise you. He's going to wake up, be healed, and we're going to drive down to the beach to surprise you. I said, I'm going to turn my locations off so you don't know where we are. We're going to show up, and he's going to walk out and he's going to be healed.
And like, we just had zero doubt that was what was going to happen. And I constantly look back to a year and a half earlier where I had a whole lot of doubts. And now I'm like, okay, yeah, that's going to happen. And we just kept expecting it.
Can I add real quick that at the very, very beginning, a year and a half ago, like I was saying at the service, how the Lord had set out certain instructions, that's part of why it got to that point where it was such faith, because he was saying one of the biggest things was keep the circle small, don't Google, there's going to be no fear, and then he said
God was going to use this to change our family
he
for
said,
generations.
this is going to change your entire family and for generations to come. And he said to keep, it will not matter what you hear with your human ears. It will not matter what you see with your human eyes. Keep your eyes focused on the fire in Jesus' eyes. So that was a process to get there where it truly was focused on the fire, but it happened in the whole family. It happened. And that's how you're to this point of being able to be like fully expecting it, because the focus was Jesus the entire time. Frank as well. Beautiful growth, massive expansion. Continue. Okay.
Well, and yes, and Cindy had been saying that from the beginning, we're not, and I think maybe somebody else said that too, but we're not going to focus on what we see.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter what we see.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't limit what God is doing. That's it. We're focusing on what we can't see, and we're walking by faith, not by sight. And so I felt like God kept saying, because it seemed like every month or every few months we'd encounter something that looking at it was, okay, that's not encouraging. And I felt like he kept saying, are you going to trust me? And we kept saying, okay, yes, we are. So, and then a month or so later is, are you going to trust me? Yes, we are. Don't care what it looks like. So I end up having to take everybody, 5 kids, to the beach with me, and to leave her and Frank at home, and it was
In a camper.
in a motorhome, and it was not fun, obviously, with all that was going on. And I was hoping all my kids would have fun and enjoy it, and I think they managed to. And it was chaos. George was only there for like 2 nights, and he flew to Chicago, and Mary Clayton had to come down a day late, and it was just crazy. But we were supposed to check out on Sunday and come back home, and so I said on Saturday, no, let's just leave Saturday night and we'll get back. And so Sunday morning, she wakes me up and says, don't be fearful, but he's a little worse.
And it had happened through the night on Saturday night.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Because he went to bed Saturday night saying, I'm going to watch the church service tomorrow and I'm going to be healed during that church service.
Mm-hmm. They want me to come over and watch it there.
Yeah. And then I wake up really early and I could see the shift in him.
Mm-hmm.
And so I texted her, I was like, don't go to church, come over here, watch it with me, be near me. And because the shift had occurred where he just wasn't, he could still communicate and he could still talk. It's just like he was having to whisper already because the amount of oxygen he was on just dried out his vocal cords, so he was having to only whisper. And but then like there was a weakness in his lungs where his the whisper was weaker.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, and he
and
was
his
just
eyes are a
his
little
eyes were
different.
like, well, that didn't happen all the
I
time
know,
either,
it's
though,
just a
but
little different.
yeah.
all right, so friend of Cindy's, Zaida,
Oh yeah, she's at
woke
church
up
that morning.
Sunday
Yeah.
morning
That same day.
that same day
In Destin.
with Frank on her heart and God telling her to come to Birmingham. All right, so we have never met Zaida in our life. She didn't know us. She knew Cindy. And all of a sudden, a few hours later, she's in our house. And we're like, huh? Well, this is crazy. We didn't even know you. And God sent you to us. And so they just spend most of the day, most of the night in his room praying for him, most of the next day. And
Almost the whole next
think,
day.
It was a whole next thing.
yeah, it's like she stayed till 4 o'clock in the morning, Tuesday morning.
We went home at 1 something, fell asleep around 2, woke back up around 4 to get her to her car and on the road by 5 a.m. to get to work on Tuesday.
Yeah, so she stayed with us for all that time.
Yeah.
That was a fun day.
And didn't get very much sleep and just
And
gave
our
up
other
her
friend came
life.
for praise
Yeah.
and worship.
And she drove down,
on
was
Monday
there,
and
praise
left
and
Monday
worship,
night.
prayed over us, just blessed our family, and rode back home.
Mm-hmm. And we had awesome family time.
Yeah, that night we all, as a family, we all had praise and worship, prayed over Frank, worshipped with him,
Prayed over Kirk.
prayed over Kirk, yeah. Kirk and Frank had a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so all that's still really good and still totally expecting, okay, you just keep making us wait a little longer, but you're going to do this. And when Zaida left, didn't she say God had already told her, be ready to jump your car and come back?
She knew if anything changed that it was still her assignment, to come back. Yeah,
All right, so
that it was not done. Because if you were looking with your human eyes, the nurse can see that's coming twice a week for checking on. Every checkbox is starting to get checked of like, the end is near. Just shy of a miracle, he's not going to make it.
Well, and on that note, so when he comes home on oxygen, he's on hospice care technically at that point and I'm telling myself it's just the oxygen. That's what, but they're asking me like, so do you know the condition he's in? Like, where this is going kind of thing. I'm like, he's going to be healed. Let me just tell you, like, here's what God's done in our family. And they knew, like, okay, like there was a social worker lady that came first, or not first, I guess the nurse came first, but she's like, I'm with you. Okay, I believe with you too. That's how I pray too. And the social worker lady was like, you're making me want more kids. And she loved our family. And so everybody's with us. And when his nurse came, the first time she saw him during that shift after that Sunday, she said, so things have shifted. So I want to start coming every day and checking on him just to make sure he's comfortable. I'm like, that's okay. And the night before, Frank had asked me in the middle of the night, he said, what happens if I die? And I said, I'm going to pray you back. Because this is a battle and I win.
Yeah.
It's Satan and me, and he hates me, I hate him, and I'm going to win. So he's coming back. So, like, don't worry about it. I got that part covered. And so, and he's, I don't think he really he didn't acknowledge my answer, but I think I know he heard
And
me.
during this Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday,
But I told the nurse that, yes. I told the nurse
so,
that,
yeah.
yes. I'm telling her, this is what he asked me last night. This is how I answered him. She's like, I'm there with you. Okay, I believe with you. I pray with you too.
which was amazing. God
Yeah.
sent us a godly nurse that
Yeah,
didn't
I-
bat an eye at what we told her.
Yeah. And he's home, not in a hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And during this time, he's out of it mostly. And then some,
He can communicate. Okay.
yeah. It's just more, for sure, well, he
Like
was,
long naps
Yeah.
with your eyes half open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and he would say things like, I've been
He
to
told
3
me he'd been to
dimensions.
3 dimensions. He told me, one day he looked at me, he said, are there 2 of you? And I said, no, just right here, just me. And he goes, I want to talk to the other one. And I was like, okay. And Zida said, he was talking to your spirit, man. Like your spirit and his spirit were having. I was like, well, good. Because I said, I hope she's a nice lady. I said, I hope she wasn't going, honey, I'm so tired. But I said, I hope that was, you know, everybody knows he would talk for about 3 hours for a 10-minute story and take an hour and a half to tell you. It's like, at least he's getting to talk to somebody, because I know it was her.
So he had a lot of spiritual stuff God
Yeah.
was doing.
He was
during
seeing
this
visions.
time.
He was seeing angels. We asked him one day, like, do you get to see angels? And he went like that and pointed right in front of him, like there's one right
So he
there.
had no energy too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He had not lifted his arm for anything.
That would be like running a
No.
marathon at that
Yeah.
point. But what was also cool was there's a mirror straight
Yeah.
in front of his bed. And my friend Zida can see in the spirit realm and she can see angels. And she had said there was a large angel behind his bed the entire time. So actually when he was reaching and pointing, he's
He
seeing.
could have been seeing the one right.
So that's pretty awesome. And he told you, I think I'm supposed to die for the Lord.
He said that, yeah, in the middle of the night, one of the nights
Uh-huh.
when we're having our praise. He asked everybody to leave the room, and he told me, he said, "I think I'm supposed to die for God." I said, "No." I was like, "No, we're not doing that." Yeah, no.
You were
coming back. Yeah,
Be right back.
yeah.
All right, so Wednesday, he basically wasn't swallowing. He'd been doing some juice Monday and
Very
Tuesday.
little.
Yeah, I mean, not a bunch, but he
And
probably
no
did
food.
close to 20 ounces. But he had not eaten since Sunday.
Yeah.
No, I ain't eaten since.
No, he ate Saturday.
No, he wasn't eating.
Sunday he didn't eat. Monday and Tuesday.
I remember seeing
Okay.
a piece of toast not touched.
Okay, then it was just juice.
And so Wednesday, he was basically drooling and he really couldn't swallow. And so I said, okay, well then obviously we're going to the hospital and they'll do a feeding tube and then we'll just pour a gallon of juice down him every day and God is going to bring him back through this dang juice that we started a year and a half ago that he couldn't do. And I was like, okay, that's got to be it. And so Thursday morning, the nurse comes, and so I'm like, okay, come here, I need to talk to you. This is what we need to do. And she's like, oh, honey, he just can't do that at this point. And then
It was 10 minutes.
10 minutes later,
Yeah.
that he passed. And so Zida,
Well,
Who
let me
had been
say,
up.
hang on. Like, so he passes. His nurse is there with me. Like, she was still at the house. And I know, and I started going, I watched it and I said, so I'm the whole time saying, come back. I have no idea what all I said, but I start praying resurrection immediately. And his nurse is there with me, praying with me. And my prayers were not hindered at all. And I get my phone, I text Cindy, I text Deanne, and I texted Leah, because they were all, I knew people would
Your
start
team.
praying. Yes, and Heather had already texted me, a couple of days before that, because already the Lord had us on our heart, like knowing things have
It was
shifted.
the day before.
The day before, yeah, something's going on. So, God had already started getting the troops in line and, to be
I've
praying
had
this
some
way.
of my friends say the same thing. I hadn't talked to her in months. They're
Yeah.
That Wednesday
Something's
and
going on.
Thursday, I was heavy on their heart. And I was
So, we were already being lifted up.
mm-hmm.
So, then, since he didn't come right back, I'm like, okay, this might take a minute. So, and the nurse said, you can keep him as long as you want. You just keep praying and you just call me. Because she was going to stay with me. I said, don't stay with me. It's fine. You go do what you need to do for the day. And she said, well, just when things change, let me know. I said, you'll be one of the first people I call.
So I'm racing over, driving over
Yeah.
there, getting excited because it's like,
Go dog.
what's the three initials? DRT. Got my dead racing team
Yeah.
in place, and I'm like, and the nurse was there. It is medically documented.
Yeah.
I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
I'm like, otherwise this R word against him, like, oh honey, he's just in a coma and came out of it. We had proof. They had called it in, phoned it into the doctor, so I was super stoked about that. Of like, it's go time.
And the kids are all on board. Like Charlie said, he's going to be the best show and tell. Like this other guy. So hey, I can tell y'all what heaven looks like. But Mary Clayton walks in and it's like thinking, my mom has lost it.
I was honestly scared as
Yeah.
you're talking. Like, I was from home expecting I sobbed the whole way home because I was not in the same level as everybody the whole year. I was always like, what did the doctor say? That's what I wanted to know. And so I come home and start really sobbing, and mom's having like talking downstairs, like, fine, I come to you, and you're like, this is what's happening.
Yeah, God already had me on this page. Here's what's going to happen. We're going to raise them up. Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I was like in denial. Oh, it scared me.
Yeah.
All right, so Zyda jumps in her car from Destin, drives back up, and she calls a friend of hers in Jacksonville, Florida. And says,
We had him prepared.
yeah, said,
That's whose
"You'd like
house
to-"
I had been at, was his house. So he knew me, and he's friends with her. And the Lord told him, yes, this is your assignment.
And so he jumps on a plane, flies to Birmingham.
Stephen.
Thank you, Stephen. That was his role.
He made it happen.
All right, so Zyda and Hart both have experience.
They've been on dead raising teams before.
So two people that are not, batting an eye at this. This is like, oh yeah, let's go to work. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Just a week ago, and for sure before that, I'm thinking, it's just us. What? We know nothing about this. You can't just, if it comes down to,
practice at that.
gotta at least have somebody that's seen something, and I can't even imagine how lost I would have been. Now, I don't know about Cindy and Christy, but I would have just felt like, oh, we're in the woods and we can't even see. And so God sends us two people that this is not uncommon at all. And they're on fire and ready to go, and like, wow. So Harv gets there late Thursday night, about 9:30.
Yeah.
Zyda's already been there for several hours.
Yeah.
Our kids go to bed going, okay, we want Frank to come in and wake us up in the morning. They're totally not batting an eye. And so they begin to just be in the room there and pray all night. Now, Mary Clayton goes from coming to our house and feeling like, oh my gosh, this looks hopeless and I'm heartbroken and terrified and whatever, to being in the room with them that night, 180 degrees, completely changed, just praying fervently and no doubts.
She took our fourth watch.
Yeah.
Where Christy and I have been sleep deprived. You for a month, me for 2 weeks, being over there so much. And we went downstairs. Zyda and our friend Harv we would text things that Christy couldn't necessarily know or wasn't important at that moment kind of thing. And she was asking, do you think Christy'd be okay if we were alone in here with Frank for about an hour and like war without you guys, like take a few different approaches? And I was like, is she gonna care? Like this, y'all know what you're doing kind of thing. And so she's like, we have to honor, like on assignment, you honor whatever their wishes are. So I was like, if you think it needs to happen, I will make it happen. I promise she's not gonna care. So I was like, just give me the thumbs up. She said probably around 2 a.m. That was around 1 a.m. So 2 a.m. comes around, she gives me this is what we need to do. So I was like, Christy, Mary Clayton, let's go downstairs. Let's get a little bite to eat, get our second dinner, and we're just gonna let them be in here for a little while by themselves. Is that cool? She's like, yeah. So we left, go downstairs, eat our little pizza bites, and our job was to stay in our heart of posture. I said that backwards. Posture our hearts to still stay in worship, still praying life over his body, saying everything we were saying, just not in the room. And so we're so tired. So we're like, let's go downstairs and get on the cozy sofas in the dark for a while. And we'll turn on the praise and worship, hey, do it on the Magic TV thing and make it loud to her phone. And so we're doing that, and Christy and I are just like, oh, just trying to keep our eyes open and still praying, and we're singing, and you got cozy, still and quiet. So I was like, good, like she's resting. And then I look over and open my eyes, and there's Mary Clayton, done a 180 right before our eyes. She had been in the room, but it's still kind of like, eh. And then, but she's over this, just arms up and worshiping and praying. I can just see her over there warring. I was like, Mary Clayton. She's like, what? I was like, look at you. It's like, Christy, look at your daughter. It's like, she's taking the fourth watch. It's like, look at her. It's like, thank you, Mary Clayton. I was like, we're just going to snooze for a minute. I was like, you're standing in the gap for us right now where we just can't anymore. It's like, thank you, baby. And she is just going at it. And before I know it, we both took a snooze for a second. Her phone rings, which cut the music off for a minute, which was a sweet fella checking on her. And then I'm texting, she's not in there anymore. So I'm texting Z upstairs like, hey, is Mary Clayton with you? And if so, do you need me to come get her? Because they wanted to be alone. And she said, no, this is exactly how the Lord wanted to go. It was supposed to be us first. And Mary Clayton was supposed to join us. She's in here getting words of knowledge and laying and releasing it on him and getting, oh my God. Oh, but before even all that happened, before we went downstairs, movement was happening in his body. Like it was working. There were, not to be graphic, but he was cold. He had been there for 12 hours when the party's really getting started. Whoa, break on 3 resurrections.
We did that.
We all had our hands in on 3 resurrections. It really was the whole mood of there was never gloom and doom. How can you when you have your eyes on the fire in Jesus' eyes? So he was cold. And there would be times when we were like, oh, he's warm right here. And we'd make sure nobody had their hands right, because we'd be like, if you were warm, I was just praying right there. So our heat, had warmed him. But there were times it's like nobody had their hands there. And there were warm spots. There were times where color was coming back in certain areas. So we were like, it's happening. Like we were all fired up knowing this is working. Like this is so awesome and exciting. So then on the 4th watch, when Mary Clayton's up there, tell them what happened while you were in there, little warrior.
Wait, are you talking about kind of along the same lines? Yeah.
Yeah.
So we had just kind of been going at it, and then I eventually ended up sitting down by his bed. I was like, just kind of like resting my head on it, like looking at him. And Zyda was looking at something like a new song on her phone or something, and then all of a sudden, it's like the cover just like he had
his hands.
Well, he had his hands out,
Yeah.
and then the cover was like over his stomach, and all of a sudden it just moved. Like that, and I was like, I wasn't gonna say anything. I was kind of like looking at him. It's easy. He was like, did you see that? I was like, you saw that? And we're like, oh, what was that?
Yeah.
I was like, I don't think it was like his body moved. I mean, she says that she thinks it, but I just think it was just seeing his spirit or something. And so we started like warring at that moment over him. And as he got warmth in his hands again, and
Color in his fingernails.
And his fingernails, his eyes had changed. They were like a dark gray. They went
She's
back to
texting
white.
me all that.
And we were like, oh my God, it's happening. I was like, you're right here. Like,
Come on.
Yeah, it was really close. And I was so glad that y'all were not in the room for that part, because I feel like for Mom, I don't know.
I didn't tell her.
that.
Yeah, I knew all the texts. I was reading all the texts, and I was hallelujah, keep going. But I didn't want to tell her because that's a teaser.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Harv said, like, during that whole time that he was in that room, he was just kind of fighting it, deciding, going back and forth.
Yes, Frank was in the room.
Yes, his spirit was still in the room. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. So go from there.
All right, so it's about 9 o'clock the next morning, and Christy's in the
And
dining
at that
room.
point, I had been awake for a while. I'd gone in the room and I sat over on the mattress we had in there that I had slept on while we were in that room.
I had to go home.
Yeah, she had left to
wake
go
him up.
home, and I'm because I just couldn't stand over the body, but I could be in the room and I
Your eyes
was praying and I'm like being the lawyer and saying, okay, God. this is going to ruin everybody's day. Like,
Your
you have to do,
reputation.
your reputation is on the line. You have said you're a liar if you don't do this. I was like telling him, this is why you have to do it.
Yeah.
And over there on the opposite side, they don't have any evidence. Like, so you have to, there's no evidence to not do this. All the evidence is on my side, so you have to do this. And Zida asked me to step outside. She's like, I've got this prayer I want to pray over. I've had a lot of, what did she say? Success, whatever, breakthrough with that prayer. So she tells me to ask if I minded if I just went downstairs. So I'm like right below in our dining room, walking around in circles and praying. And at that, so it's like 9:30. And I start seeing cars out in our on the street in front of our house. I see people looking into our house, looking at our house. I'm thinking, what's going on? And I see a police car over there, and I'm thinking, so I walk outside and I said, is there a problem? And they said, well, like the lady that was in like the nurse's outfit thing, she said, yes, ma'am, there's a Alabama law that within 24 hours of a death, the body has to be on its way. It has to be transported to the next place. And so we're ready to keep going for a whole nother day. I'd already texted the nurse and said, we're going to keep going. I'll call you when things change. And I think she said, I'm in it with you, something like that. So she evidently didn't know that this was going to happen. So they're saying we've got to take it. And I'm thinking, we're not done. This hasn't happened yet. No, you can't take him.
About 10 a.m.
Not quite.
No,
Not
not
this
yet.
was still 9:30.
Okay.
That's
So I run inside and I wake Kirk up and I'm like, we have to be done, and they're going to come get it. So Zida's also, she goes outside to see, is there a religious exemption we can get? Like, here we're instant here.
Like, we believe in Jesus, we're in here praying him back to
She
life.
said Matthew 10:8 says, raise the dead, cast out demons, heal the sick.
Yeah.
And so she said, we're in here warring. So is there a religious way to get around this rule? And and I'm like, go wake Kirk up, and I said, this can't happen. I can't ever pray again. I can't read my Bible ever again and trust God, because he didn't do what he said he was going to do. He's so level-headed. Like, the disciples were just as confused when Jesus died, and we're in good company, and he is responsible for the results. It's fine. He's in heaven.
And I said, I don't even understand why he'd want to come back, but I don't know what's going on, because y'all felt this for a long time. So I'm just going to assume he's supposed to come back, but I can't imagine that he wants to. And I said, but either way.
She didn't even remember calling me.
I
She
don't
called me very frantic and said, you gotta come back. They're here to take his body. And what did you say? And you said, I cannot process this. Just get here. So I'm like, turn around to come right back. I got 45 minutes of sleep. That was
So
it.
Mary Clayton had left because the fellow that was the sweet fellow that had come to get her in the middle of the night, let her, cry, hug her, take a quick nap in the car, and then come back to the house. So she walks in, so I go outside and I tell them, okay, well, we're not crazy. I mean, we're crazy, but we're not gonna I'm not fighting you on this, but we do need to figure out how we're gonna have the kids not wake up, when you're walking out of the house with them. And so Bonnie went in to say goodbye. She went in with the kids so that they wouldn't wake up and walk out of the door. I mean, out of the room. And then,
process.
yeah. And then, so at 10 o'clock, Mary Clayton walks in and she said, okay, I gotta tell you this.
Well, she called me at 6 a.m. when she felt it.
Oh,
because I didn't want to tell Zadie yet, because I didn't want.
Or
We were so specific about what we spoke into the room.
Yes.
I was like, I'm gonna put that
So she called me and she was like, Aunt Cindy, this is what I'm feeling and this is what I'm thinking that Frank is telling me. And she was like, I don't want to say it. And I said, well, just tell me. She's outside. I can hear birds chirping, so I know she's out of the house, being so honoring to the rules, we'll say, of the house. And I was like, just tell me. And she said, well, I'll let you say what she said, but she said what she said. And then I said, that's not a thought. So that's not the enemy, putting thoughts in your head. I said, that's a feeling. It could be a knowing, because you've been receiving words of knowledge through the night. I said, you absolutely need to go in there and tell her, you have to. And then I texted Z a little while later, said, did Mary Clayton tell you what I told her to tell you? She said, yes. So I knew it had been spoken, went right back to warring and praying, but then tell them how you said it to them.
So I came to her because you were both freaking out about, don't know what we're doing, and while we had been up there, this was after we had the whole like whoosh moment, and we're like, oh my gosh, and then eventually we kind of like died down, weren't over him anymore, and I was sitting in the chair, I was just kind of looking at him, and then I just like, I cannot describe it, but I just felt him like right here beside me, and I've always questioned whenever people say like they know that God told them this or something, but Frank told me that he wanted to stay in heaven, and I was just kind of like, okay, and I was sobbing, and then Z was looking at me, she's like, you're having a spiritual encounter right now, aren't you? I was like, yes! I was sobbing, and so I let Mom know that Frank said,
Yeah, so she walked into the house at 10 o'clock when the floors falled out, you know, whatever, been ripped out rug, yes, and I'm like thinking, I can't trust you, God, and then she said, no, I mean, I felt in the middle of the night, I felt him say, I want to stay, and I was like, okay, like, he chose, like, that wasn't God not doing anything we thought he was going to do, that was Frank saying, hey, change of plans.
Change of plans.
Yeah.
I saw heaven.
Because he was like the whole night trying to decide, do I come
He
back?
was fighting.
Yeah.
100% fighting. I'm driving over them back to your house with like progressive party. It doesn't matter if the body's not there. The prayers stay the same. Like we just.
So yeah, Zaida was making sure with the coroner lady that was there. She was like, okay, so if we keep praying and he wakes up and where you have him, can he walk out? Yeah. They're like, yes. Like you can open the door.
Yeah.
And when we were telling this other night to some friends, they said, can you imagine the fellow that was driving the car?
They're aware, driving that truck that we're praying he's going to come on.
You know we're now those people's crazy.
Water cooler.
Yeah, the water. Yes, can you believe the morning I've had? Yeah, let me tell you, these people.
That Elizabeth Drive.
All right, so Mary Clayton felt Frank saying that, and then we find out that you felt the same thing,
I had felt it that morning.
and you felt the same thing,
She had felt it.
and so
Pop
Zaida,
had felt it. Bon had felt it. Zaida had felt it. We all were getting that same. He does not.
Well,
and
Zaida
then
had two people that weren't even there.
Zaida got a text from two different people in different states that don't even know each other, and they both had the exact same vision, and they said, I see Frank talking to God, and Frank saying, I want to stay with you.
Yeah.
And so
Those were two people, both in Texas, two different ministries. So they had no clue. They don't know each other.
yeah,
And
nothing.
they saw the same thing.
And they didn't know why Zaida was there. Could
No,
have been
correct.
to heal a divorce.
Most of the intercessors had no knowledge. They knew I'm on assignment. Those two particular women knew I'm with a family. We need intercession. Let me know what the Lord gives you. That was it. Like no details. They didn't know we're warring for
They didn't know
resurrection life. Like they didn't know that at all. Yeah. So we're all getting this feeling. I'm trying to fill her in separately. I'm like, are you translating that to Dad? You want me to call Mary? She said,
By
you
the
need to call
way,
Mary.
we were home with COVID and could not be with them at all.
So
the whole
for 2
time.
weeks, Mom and Dad did not see any of us.
Well, I didn't see you till today.
Yeah.
yeah,
Same.
today.
And you,
Same.
3 weeks.
Yeah, yeah. So no goodbyes, but God had purpose
Oh, yeah.
in that. I don't think
I
y'all
don't know
would
what it
have.
is, but
All right, well, hang on, we're not done yet.
Yeah, not done yet.
All right, so Thursday night, Charlie goes to bed, and he says, I want to ask God to show me Frank. It's like, okay, be great. So he gets up Friday morning, and he tells Cindy and Zaida what happened. And Cindy recorded it.
Yeah, well, hopefully it'll work in here. We all can all hear what this precious baby encountered with the Lord.
So this is the night he's already passed.
Yes,
Yeah,
it
so
already passed.
he passed Thursday morning. This is Thursday night going to bed.
It didn't go badoop.
It did.
Oh, yeah, it did.
I heard that turn on. I didn't hear the.
Oh,
So how do I make it? No. Let's do mine. Yeah. What'd you do? Okay.
keep passing.
Who are we passing to? Bluetooth. so that little dude. We should hear it go cuckoo. No, I just turned it on. I just turned it on. It's just we live in
You
Fort
probably
Knox.
do it without the speaker.
Yeah,
I'm sure
That's
that's
true,
it.
because it's loud in here. Yeah, okay,
Good
it's fine.
acoustics.
We'll turn it off. Did you already get it off? Hold it down. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so sweet little Charlie starts to tell us, me and Zyda, were you in the room that first time, Bonnie? That first time when we recorded it? You were in there, right?
No, I was in there when Zach was out and Harv and me and Harley was in there, when he was telling her.
The first time, yeah, so we're sitting in there, he started to say it, and then she looks at me, hits record. So then I'm guiding him through these questions so that he can, we're gonna save it as a surprise for the family for later. And Charlie did such a good job, so hopefully y'all will all hear it. I'll try to cup it or something.
So Charlie, you told me last night you had a dream about Frank. Tell me about that dream.
I told God that I had to see Frank in my dream, and I did.
You did, and that was right before you went to bed? And then what did God show you?
He just showed me a flash of Frank talking to him.
Was it after you were asleep or while you were still awake?
I was awake and I was closing my eyes. What is a
And
flash?
then in that flash, what did God show you? Like, what did Frank look like?
He had his normal hair back, and he had muscles, and he was sitting on like a basket talking to God.
I love that. Did you get to see what God looked like?
No, it only showed me Frank.
That's all you can see. So do you remember anything like around? You saw the basket that he was sitting on. Do you remember any special colors or anything?
Like grass.
Like grass
A sky.
and the sky. Do you remember
And I
the
think I
vision?
saw a house.
Cool. I like that. Do you remember? Okay, I was gonna say anything else around. Do you remember any sounds or smells? If not, then yeah, say no if you don't. And do you remember like any?
I saw trees on the right.
Yeah. That were, and was that the same side that the house was on, or somewhere else?
No, the house was on the left, and the trees were on the right.
That's beautiful. Was there water anywhere? Do you remember?
I think I saw a little pond
Cute.
in the right, but I couldn't see much of it.
I like that. Do you remember seeing anything in the sky? Did you remember? I mean, it's a flash.
I know, so I couldn't see so much.
Yeah.
I don't know if I saw anything
I
else.
love that. Is there anything else you remember you want to remember? Is that pretty much everything, which is a ton and so incredible?
I saw stairs.
Yeah? And where were they located?
Maybe like on the left foot, Frank was sitting on like stone steps leading maybe to God
I
on
like
a
it.
chair.
I like that. That's awesome. I really like that.
That's all.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that, Charlie.
Okay, I'm gonna add, or can I say what Delaney said?
Yeah.
With that. So the surprise part came later the evening when the whole family got to hear Charlie repeat it. We didn't play it. He got to repeat it. And they were 3 stone steps. That was the only thing that he clarified that night. So that's how it was more like an altar.
3.5.
3.5. Up to where God was. But when, so Zyda knew that was going to bring healing to a lot of people that night, to be able to see Frank in heaven fully restored and fully healed. And when her friends came over the other night, we went back over there. Delaney, who was the old girlfriend,
History.
she was history, but they grew up together, Dee and Marty's little girl.
Yeah, they've known each other since they were born.
She started weeping and tells us later that Frank had told her one time, like, my house in heaven, and had described what he wanted, and it was that. The pond, a house, trees, the grass. Like, so that is exactly what the Lord showed him. And that is beautiful. That's why she was totally weeping, and he was fully restored, fully healed, with his little fishing pond.
Okay, let me share then also the vision that
Yeah, so this is the final thing we find out.
Yeah.
And this is the biggest thing,
Yeah.
or at least for me, it was the biggest
for
thing.
me too, yeah.
And so Zaida,
Before our evening, how that culminated?
Well, that we found this out.
Before the evening.
Yeah, we found this out
yeah,
before we
the
started,
evening
yes.
started. So
So
Just
we
to-
had decided, we can, Frank, we know that that point that Mary Clayton had, and then the two other ladies and Cindy, that everybody felt like he's chosen. He wants to stay. It'd be selfish to bring him back. Like this, it's
That's
okay.
all to see.
It's okay. That it's okay this way. Like we have peace about. But we had peace about this. Well, and at 10:00, remember, is when the people came to get his body.
But hang on. So Zaida had sent this girl a message when
This is
she was
another friend of
driving
ours.
up to our house on
Thursday.
Thursday, and she just said,
I'm going
basically
to
going on
minister.
assignment, going to minister, be praying, and let me know.
Intercede.
Anything
Text
you
me,
say.
Anything the Spirit tells you.
So this girl knew nothing. She had no idea of what was going on, didn't know where she was going,
in.
nothing.
So this is a screenshot that Zaida sent me of their text. The girl texted her and said, I had a vision and I want to make sure I'm correct. The person is male and is not in the body. Happened around 10. And so, I know. And Zaida texted back, what else did you see? What else? Because she wasn't going to feed anything into it. She said, at 10:00, the Lord said, it is finished. Around 10:30, I saw a spirit man up in the cosmos. And the Lord went up to him, and I didn't hear the conversation. But as the Lord was speaking, I saw pink, yellow, and green colors come out of his mouth over the spirit man. She goes, okay, what did he say in the cosmos, the spirit man? He goes, I didn't see it go. He said, I didn't see it go anywhere else. The vision cut out. She goes, and that was at 10:00 today. She says, 10 a.m. is when God said it's finished, and 10:30 is when I had the vision. She goes, you're correct. 10 a.m. the body was taken home by the corners, but they looked up what the colors, pink and yellow and green are, understanding, knowledge, understand. Yeah, healing was the green, and purity was the pink.
Which goes with Daddy's verse.
Yeah, and okay, yes, and then Dad. Okay, the fastest way for me to find it is go to your Instagram because I can't scroll through. But Dad's had felt like God had given him the verse that's on that Bible and there on that cake says that he said, I felt like this is Frank telling us this word. The Lord has rewarded me according to my righteousness, according to my cleanness in his sight.
Okay, then I got to add to that. So the colors, like I looked up what I could find, and yellow said sunshine, happiness, friendship, resurrection, new life, healing, hope, peace, rest. And for sure the green green said new life and growth, healing, peace, victory, rest. And the pink, this one said new life, Father's heavenly care. So I just could picture God's wrapping Frank in those colors and saying, you're home.
Let's go home.
And, okay, so I went from, as she had said, as she's praying on Thursday or Friday, whenever it was, of saying, okay, God, here's the list of why you got to do this. And I said, so for a year and a half, there would be times where I would have these thoughts of, okay, if you don't do this, and I wouldn't let myself go there for more than about 30 to 60 seconds. Go like, I'm not going to be thinking in the negative because I believe you're going to heal him. But it terrifies me that if you don't, are you going to destroy my family's faith through this? Because you've been telling us for a year and a half, you're going to do this. And I said, are you going to destroy my faith? Because how do I ever pray again and feel like you've given me an answer and then I trust it? And then I'm also talking to a friend of mine, Russ, that's the one that gave me the word of scripture in the beginning, that he saw Frank being healed. And so I'm telling him this whole story a few days ago, and he said, well, I was really worried that for you guys, for exactly those things, and he said, I was worried for me for those things.
Wow.
And I said, so God brought me from being in that place to being able to say, okay, I felt like God telling me every step of the way. I kept asking you, are you going to trust me? And I said, yes. And it just kept going. Zaida describes it like a chess match, that God makes a move and then he waits to see if you're going to make a move. And I said, so I felt like every time, for me, he kept saying, okay, I'm making a move. Are you going to trust me? And I said, yeah, I'm going to trust you. And it's getting harder, but I'm going to trust you. I don't, boy, this doesn't look at all like I was hoping it would look, but I'm going to trust you. And so I went from being terrified of it destroying my faith to going, okay, so I woke up Saturday morning, I think, and
Yeah.
I was a mess, and I'm laying there crying.
Mm-hmm.
And we had said Friday night, because one of the kids looks over at the clock and they see the 43 on Friday night. And we said, okay, we're going to see those, and we're going to say that from now on, that's Frank saying hi, or I love you, or just checking in on us.
Little God wink.
Yeah, wink. And so Saturday morning, I'm laying there in bed, I'm crying, and I have no idea how long I'd been laying there, but I finally look over at the clock, and it was 9:43. And I felt like that was just Frank saying, it's all good, it's fine, don't cry. And I said, so I went from feeling like my faith could be destroyed, and in that moment I was laying there thinking about it. I was like, okay, this is really weird, but I feel like my faith is stronger
It is.
than it was a year ago. And I never, ever would have thought, if you had told me this was the end result, I never would have said that would be my response to this. But obviously God always does something that's surprising. And
Because that night ended up shifting from, instead of
Warring
everything
and
falling,
contending.
we shifted to just, let's just praise the Lord now.
Yeah.
Let's just,
So once we all knew everybody's kind of feeling the same piece, Mom and Daddy, Bon, Zaida, like everybody, Mary Clayton, and hearing the other two ladies in Texas that had been interceding, then we're like, well, we have invited Elise to come tonight. So we gotta know how the night's gonna look. It's either, because she knows nothing at that point, so it's either gonna be she's gonna come over, hear the worst news ever, but say, but we're still warring and contending for him to come back to life, which would be like, too much. Or she comes over and we begin the process of this is now life without Frank. And so she had finally gotten to go to sleep for the first time, like real rest, everything's off my plate. And that she went to bed thinking, we're probably gonna be in that place of Frank is gonna be choosing home. But she could have woke up thinking I'm raring to go. So I go to wake her up about 4 o'clock, knowing there's a big decision, because Zaida and our friend Harp, you have to again respect what the family wants to do. They can't say, no, let's still do this. They just can't do that. So she was like, we gotta know. She was like, I feel like tonight needs to be about praise and worship. I was like, me too, that sounds so perfect. So I was like, let me go talk to my sister. So I go wake her up and crawl in bed with her. Mary Clayton was sleeping with her because I was their first sleeps for a while. And I crawl in bed with her and Kirk had run out to go do a quick errand. So everybody do, as soon as Kirk walks in the door, send him upstairs, because this has to be them making this decision for their child. And we had a good long talk, and I shared about all the people feeling the peace. I said, I don't tell you this to influence you. I said, I'm telling you this because if you're thinking, I don't want to give up. If everybody else wants to, like just, I don't want to be the one to turn in a white flag if everybody's saying, no, let's war, let's fight. And I said, we all honor and respect whatever you and Kirk decide, we're behind you kind of thing. We all feel peace either way kind of thing. And then we just started reflecting on all the beautiful things that the Lord has done over this year and a half through the family, individually through the children, individually through Kirk, individually through Christy. And it wasn't long after that, Kirk did come in the room, so then the three of us are talking. I excused myself, but he was kind enough to say, I'm an open book, you can stay, and we'll talk this out. And I was like, okay, I'll keep us on time, because we got about 20-30 minutes till Elise is gonna be there. So then we just start talking through, and I was like, you guys, and then I realized, like, statistically speaking, most people, families in this situation are under such amounts of stress and duress and questions, even if they have faith and they are Christians. It's too much for humans. And I said, statistically speaking, you guys should be hating each other, fighting all the time, on your way to divorce or divorced after a year and a half of this. And I said, look at the two of you. And Kirk just saw it instantly, and he said, he's brought us closer. I said, that's right. I said, that's what has happened, because y'all have been so faithful and so honoring to the Lord's instructions for this entire time that, yes, look what God has done. Like only God can do this, that they've become closer individually and as a couple, and unity in the family. So we just had our little kumbaya moment of that. And then I said, Zida and I were thinking of doing praise and worship for the evening, of like, let's go out the same way he told us to come in, is keep our eyes on the fire and Jesus' eyes. And they both said, yes, we love that. So they're like, if God wants to be God and override Frank's wishes, he can. He's a God. He knows our hearts. He knows our wishes. But if he decides to honor his free will choice of wanting to go home, then we're at peace with that. So I went downstairs to prepare Zida and Harv, and they go off to prepare for worship that evening, how that's going to look. And then sweet Elise comes over, and we start preparing her heart. And then we just started worshiping and had the most beautiful playlist. And we held each other, and we did some crying, and we did some loving. And then they had decided to come around the room and just minister to each person that night, and just pray and lay hands on each person. And everybody, and they did the Charlie surprise of getting to hear that. That was right after praise and worship started. So everybody just loved getting to hear his open vision. And what a gift for a 10-year-old to have a seer anointing that young. Like, look out what the Lord's going to do in that baby right there. So, that was a really cool way.
And that's why we didn't want to minister saying anything today, because we're like, we already have all the faith.
Yes.
We have all the peace. And whatever pastor would have said today would have just been like
therapy in one night.
Yeah.
That the Lord, one touch from the Lord can do all of that. And we all were leaving the house that night smiling and happy and filled with the Holy Spirit. And it was just beautiful. And everybody's receiving these words. And I personally myself was sitting back, out of body experience of being like, like these kids have no idea what's being spoken over their lives, but I know what those things mean. So even though Frank had a call on his life to minister and be part of my ministry team and have a call of evangelism on his life.
Oh, I'm sorry. So I totally forgot to make sure you guys know this, that I felt like God was saying I was prepared to do everything that I told you I was going to do.
Yeah.
All the 43s, they weren't accidents, they weren't me leading you on. I was prepared to heal it. When I told Christy and Cindy and Evelyn
To prepare.
be prepared for this, I was prepared to do it. And it just turns out that Frank decided, I want to stay with you.
Yeah.
And I felt like that he said, because you were willing to trust me, each time I ask you, I'm going to pull back the curtain of heaven and I'm
Yeah.
going to show you a little bit of what took place. And I felt like that was all those answers, and especially that vision of him being in the sky and being wrapped in the colors, and him just saying, I want to stay up here with you.
Beautiful.
Because obviously not everybody gets to know that.
Right.
Some people just are left going, okay, just gotta trust, and I got nothing else. And,
Yeah.
and we got a whole lot more.
Whole lot more. That was him blessing our yes
Yeah,
the whole time.
The chess game.
The chess game. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. Like we did win.
Yeah.
And then we find out at some point after, I don't know, Friday, Saturday, I would have said, okay, I know we've got some people praying for us. Feel like it's a little handful of people that we know. And then Marv and Zaida know people in ministries and
Yeah.
some pretty large ministries, and they had sent them messages, and those people sent out messages, and we had people in, did you say eight countries?
Eight different states and countries, because there was South America, South Africa, Texas, several locations of Florida.
Louisiana.
Well, and I'm sure we don't
good
even.
game on it. And y'all, North Carolina,
Virginia, where's your friend?
Yeah, Virginia.
Virginia. So it might be 9 because I was forgetting about Deanne. I was thinking about just the people we had put on
And
it.
of course, Alabama.
Yeah, in Alabama, of course.
But I'm assuming there's probably a whole bunch
Just
that
9.
they've made connections with that we don't even know about.
I don't know
But anyway,
from that,
so,
but for sure 8 or 9 different
a whole
between
lot of
states and
people.
countries.
that were interceding for our
Massive.
family.
And not
on
just,
Friday and
we're going to be
Saturday.
praying. No, it's on your face with Jesus, listening to Holy Spirit guide and move.
I mean, the girl with the text, she's 19, 20,
She's, 19, about to be 21.
knew nothing. Just the fact that she was interceding and got to see that and share it with us was amazing.
And had no idea what was going on
No,
at all.
just knew I'm praying with the family. Tell me what you see.
Yep, she didn't even know it was a family. She knew nothing. Nothing. It's all-
I'll interject this,
Yeah.
not my story, but part of what happened in Louisiana. for us.
Yes,
Oh,
I want to
One
know.
of our great friends is from Guatemala, his family. They want to know everybody's name, so they know everybody's name in the immediate family. And they contacted Guatemala. They were praying for you throughout Guatemala and parts of South America. So that's just another little caveat
Wow,
you haven't heard.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
wow.
incredible.
He was one of the first ones that called me the next morning. He wanted to know what we'd heard, and so he says, whatever it is, we're still praying. So there are people praying everywhere for you guys.
Oh,
That's so awesome.
that's amazing.
Well, that's all.
Is it over yet?
Keep asking.
That's kind of a doobity-bitty.
It's time to eat, isn't it?
I'm just stoked. What I was
Been a while
saying, what
now.
I'm saying is just that now I know there's not just Frank that has a call in his life. It's pretty much everything. I mean, the Lord had said my entire family will join me in ministry, but for all I know, you're on the parking lot crew and you're on the website crew. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to mean a call. And my goodness, I have gotten to hear some mighty things that I now know, and I'm pretty stoked. That's the end of mine. Oh, and I did say at the funeral, but they did not get to hear this part of the ministry part where I was kind of sad after Frank had passed, and I'd gone to my friend Zaida, being like, I sure hope they keep choosing to war. I sure hope that they keep wanting to pray to bring him back, because I know Frank has this call of evangelism on his life, and I want him running with me, and I want him doing this ministry with me. And she said, Cindy, she said, he's now part of the cloud of witnesses in heaven, and said he can do more for you in heaven than he could have ever done with you here on earth. I was like, She goes, what do you think about that? I said, oh, it makes me burn so much brighter knowing he gets to see my scroll right now. He's getting to see theirs and look at the blueprints and the maps, and he's already strategizing against the enemy. My
Connor
favorite thing.
said, when I texted him and told him, he said, now I know I've got a guardian angel when I'm on my...
Amen.
Isn't that neat?
Yes,
Yeah.
like he could do so much more knowing the things he knows there than he could have ever done here. And that just blesses my socks off.
I had a tough moment last night. I don't like talking about work, but I was in a tough situation. I had my gun drawn.
Yeah.
There's a man in the vehicle. He has a gun in the car. I have my gun drawn down on him. I've always had like that pit feeling, like crap.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you hear everything that was going on. The whole time, I just felt like we're good. And I didn't really think much of it. I was just kind of in the moment. You got adrenaline, but normally you kind of, you know that feeling when you always get in a car crash and your heart kind of drops.
Yeah.
And normally it feels like that consistent. And I was standing there, so I gun drawn, screaming and yelling. The guy takes off in the vehicle, and I stood there for a moment. I'm getting yelled at from my partner, like get in the car, and I just kind of paused. And I just felt like warm and like never felt nervous, never felt like scared, nothing. And I got in the car and like tear rolled in my face, and I was like,
That's your buddy.
Sweet.
That is beautiful. Thank you, Jesus.
I knew I told you, and I knew he'd show it eventually.
Yeah.
God did think of me that quick.
That's huge.
That is. That's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Oh. So that's why everybody has peace
Yeah.
and joy and just Jesus. Only Jesus could do this. This much.
Now is it over?
You want cake, don't you?
Cake. Are we gonna eat that cake? Okay, maybe we will.
Well, really, it's
Yeah.
Yeah.
Starting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so one of them is in Virginia, and we would talk periodically. And I could always tell that he was trying to be encouraging and trying to say, well, you know, we're praying for Frank's healing. But I could tell that he just, you know, wasn't saying something. And finally, in one conversation, I'm kind of probing a little, and he said, well, I just don't want you to get your hopes up. And it kind of ticked me off. But I was like, seriously? Is that the God of America? That's who now we're like, yeah, I don't really expect much of God. He's just not going to do anything. And I was like, boy, that really aggravates me. So from then on, I was like, okay, God, you got to show up and you got to show off here. And
There's people watching.
yeah, it's like, your reputation's at stake. We got a whole bunch of people. My friends are like, I don't really expect much to happen. And so I call him, and I'm telling him this whole story we've just shared, and he's crying, and he's saying, oh my gosh, I am so encouraged. And he said they were in Texas moving one of their children in for college, and they were going to be there the whole week, and his wife's, I think, mom and mom, and she's got two different sets. So his mom and like stepfather were there in Texas. And he said, we're going to be going to their house tonight, and I'm going to be sharing this story with them tonight. And he said, we're going to be going to Annie's sister's house this week, and I'm going to be sharing this story with them. And he said, I'm going to be calling the guys in Birmingham that we both know, and I'm going to be sharing this story with them. And I was like, oh my gosh, God's already beginning to do stuff, and this is only like 48 hours later. And like, I wasn't expecting that. And then, do you want to read him Bethany's text?
I do.
Oh, I haven't heard that.
Yeah, you did. I read it the other night.
So Bethany, so Corey is one of my closest friends that we've known each other since college. And so basically 35 years. And so I called them on Saturday night, and they were in the car driving to a Braves game. And so he had me on the speaker so everybody in the car could hear the whole story. And so Bethany sent this text to Christy the next day.
She said, huge hugs to you, more prayers on your behalf than you can imagine, but sheer tearful joy also. Recalling the story Kirk told Corey yesterday, I was in the car as Kirk relayed the info. I sat in tears as I listened and hung on to each word. Christy, I don't know how to describe it adequately, but the untainted, impossible joy that was in Kirk's voice is something I will never forget. The authentic, blessed assurance he had, the welling over of faith in a God that loved y'all enough to give you a glimpse of his love for Frank and all of you was so immense, I can barely form words to describe how it sounded. Kirk sounded as if he had been rejuvenated. Despite it being the worst day of his life, it was inexplicably the best as well. God chose to pull back the veil because of your faith and willingness to trust and believe his mighty power. And it literally filled Kirk with a light and a confidence and a peace like I could never have imagined. Hallelujah. Praise his name, Jesus. You are a God of miracles. I cannot get the mental pictures of the visions of Frank in heaven out of my head. And I pray I never, ever do. I just had to tell you we love y'all. We are inspired by your steadfast faith in what God chose to do on your behalf. He's using this story, your experience, to touch people already. Oh, the impact it will have. I cannot be more excited and grateful. Thank you for your example. Thank you for your faith. Thank you for your obedience. It will be a light to countless believers and unbelievers alike. It is hope and it is love in tangible form. I know.
Yeah, send it to the.
Okay.
That's beautiful.
A year ago, I never would have guessed I could be able to talk about it and share everything, and it come out to where God was going to use it, and it was like
Beautiful.
yeah. I mean, I would have said no way. I'll be a mess, and I mean, I would have had every negative thought in my head about that. So that blows me away. That what she heard come out of my mouth. And obviously, I get zero credit. Absolutely.
So awesome. The church has been faithful to share your heart and what God has done. Your life will never be the same. Your life has been transformed. And a belief that you have now that you did not have before so long. And there's going to be people in your life that's going to impact that I can or Heather or somebody else because of the circles that you've been in.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to honor that and honor your witness and your power when God's power running through you and share what he's done with your lives and your children will live this. So there is life in your family like it's never been before.
I know Frank is so excited
Oh,
of
yeah.
what is already God has done in less than a week.
No, I
So
called his nurse and said, we're going to lunch. Like, you've got to hear the rest of the
Lee?
story. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the girl that was the social worker too, she's invited her. I mean, I told her I want you to be there too. And she remembered Frank telling her of his favorite Mexican restaurant, the one he took you to over in Hoover. The nurse, I mean the I keep saying social worker lady. She said, let's go to the let's go to the Hoover, to the Mexican place. I was
Is
like,
it the iguana place?
yes.
We love it now.
Yeah.
We just went.
And she said, that's what we need. I totally forgot I told her about that place. So she said, I've already told her the whole story now because she just stayed on the phone with me long enough for me to tell it all. She's like, I'm going to hear it again though because I know you probably left out stuff and you'll remember it when you say it again.
It's an insatiable hunger.
I know. She said, girl, she said, that's faith. She was like, you have faith.
So we'll do for absolutely. It's an insatiable hunger that comes into the faith feeds it.
Not to put you on the spot, but do you have anything you'd want to say? Or Connor?
Me? Who?
No.
Yes, the boys.
Yeah.
You don't have to.
No, that is
Just
somebody
don't
on
want to be like, oh, I was going to say something and nobody gave me a chance.
Right.
Well, of course I've never been known as part of the family or anything. You know, this is my first time meeting you all, and based off my first encounter, I feel like y'all are very warming and y'all are just open to meeting new people, and that just brings a light in my heart. Cause I feel as if I've only been here for 3-4 hours, and I feel like I'm part of the family.
Now you're
But,
She a blessing and a curse.
And so back when, and if y'all don't know, me and Frank, we went to JSU together, and you know, we went to college for the year that he was there. And with us in the campus ministry that we were in, we kind of formed a family. And you know, over time, me and Frank, we became, you know, closer than that, you know, kind of like blood brothers at one point, because we just had so much. And you know, Kirk and Chrissy, I kind of went into detail, but yeah, I would have never imagined this happening, but you know, it's always for the best. And it's just hearing the story now, and I did not know what to expect coming into this. I was just like, you know, I'm getting a text one random day this week from Christy.
I was walking through the mall texting.
Yeah, you text me on Messenger,
Yeah.
and I was at work at the time, so I'm like, oh my goodness, what's going on? And immediately after that, I had to, like, it was so serious. I had to talk to my girlfriend. I was like, I have to make sure I come to this. I have to, you know, be there. I don't know what was telling me to come. I don't know what pushed me to do it. You know, I had to go to work. I literally went down there. Came down here after I got off work, and like I was determined. I didn't know what to expect. I had anger, well not anger, but like I was anxious. I was scared. I was like, oh my goodness, I don't know what to expect. But after hearing that and realizing how much peace this family has with, you know, and like you were saying earlier, Cindy, about, you know, it takes 30 years or so. It takes a period of time for a family to even, you know, even some families don't even get over that type of stuff. And
A child.
Yes.
It's a child, yeah.
And to see that with y'all have reached that level of peace. And, you know, and I think that's what Frank would want, you know, and what he wanted overall. And, you know, I'm just speechless. I'm just glad that he's up there, you know, looking down on us, and he's just living it, and he got his own house and up in heaven. Like it's
30 years
you know.
And a fishing pond.
Yeah, exactly. He has all of those things now, you know, and he has a better life up there than he could have ever had
I
down
know.
here.
Well, and we said, like, he's also was the kid that if you gave him a choice to make, he was going to, like, really weigh he's the safe bet. He's like, over here, I'm guaranteed disappointment and loss and, you know, hurt. Over here, I'm in heaven for the rest of I get there first.
Like, can I swing on the vine that Jackson just swung on, or do I not?
Yeah.
He's like, he did not.
Yeah.
Safe bet.
Yeah.
I was gonna say if that was Frank's house, that probably saw.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that's what
heaven.
Delaney said he had described to her that he would want in heaven.
And we just felt like that vision was seeing Thursday night, kind of what was going on. Frank's talking to God and saying,
Laying it out there, like,
am I going back or am I staying here?
Was it that big of a house?
He doesn't need it.
It's
The house is basically heaven.
Yes.
Yeah, all of heaven is your house.
yeah, you get it all.
It's so
Didn't
awesome.
look like that much.
Okay.
Jump off of a cliff and won't even break a bone. It looked like it was made out of the thing he was sitting on.
Yeah.
His house was built out of baskets? You said he was sitting on a
Sitting on a
basket.
basket. Yeah.
That's what he was
The
sitting
basket's
on.
like a,
That wasn't
like
his
a
house.
stool, not his house. He saw a house on one
That's what I
side,
was
trees
saying,
on
it
the
looked like
other.
his house was made out of the same thing he was sitting on. So she's going, it was made out of a basket.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Thank you, Dad.
Okay, well, we don't have to understand everything. Just know it's pretty freaking
It
awesome.
is awesome, and it's just Jesus. I thank
Can't wait
both
to
of
meet
y'all
our
for
guy,
coming.
Jordan.
Are you having to get back to work? Are you on a,
I'm not done yet.
about how I figured it might be? Yeah.
Go grab a sandwich.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, for sure. Well, here, yeah, come on, I'll get up so we can, yes, y'all come on in and have.
The scripture for today is taken from the book of Mark, chapter